You are with friends planning a trip or a night out. Someone mentions what everyone can afford. You realize you could choose something easier, a better hotel, a better flight. But you say nothing. You nod, you adjust downward, you match the group, not because you have to, because you do not want to change how people look at you. And this is where many people first feel it. Getting ahead does not always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like learning how much of yourself you have to hide to stay where you used to belong. What most people do not expect is how quickly small differences start becoming visible. Nobody announces it, nobody points it out, but money changes what people assume about you. If you seem more stable, people begin watching differently. They notice what you choose. They notice what you do not react to. They notice what does not stress you anymore. And slowly your role inside the group begins shifting without conversation. You may notice people joking differently around you, complaining less directly, explaining more carefully, not because they resent you, because stability changes how people measure distance. And once someone begins looking financially secure, the group often starts placing them slightly outside shared struggle, even if nothing else about the person changed. You may notice people hesitating before suggesting plans, adjusting expectations without saying it, assuming you would choose something different, assuming your life feels different now. Sometimes they may even expect you to absorb more responsibility, cover more, decide more, lead more. Not because you offered, because stability quietly attracts expectation. And once someone becomes the most stable person in a group, people often begin relating to them less like a peer and more like a reference point. This is where many people first feel the distance, not through conflict, through subtle repositioning. Conversations start flowing around you instead of through you. Decisions sometimes form before you speak. And slowly, you may begin noticing something uncomfortable. Getting ahead does not always change how you feel about people, but it can change how people begin organizing themselves around you. Most people do not realize how early they learn to protect belonging. Long before money ever entered the picture, children learn quickly how groups stay balanced. Nobody wants to be the one who looks different. Nobody wants to be the one who creates distance. So people learn small adjustments, downplaying what they have, matching what others can do, staying inside the shared experience, because belonging feels safer than standing out. Children notice quickly what happens to the one who separates, the one who has more, the one who seems different. Sometimes that person becomes admired. Sometimes they become isolated, but they are rarely treated the same, and that lesson stays. People learn that being different can change how safe they feel inside a group. That pattern does not disappear when life improves. It follows people into adulthood. Even when success appears, the instinct to stay aligned often remains stronger than the instinct to stand apart. This is why many people feel pressure to remain relatable, even when their situation changes, because losing belonging often feels more dangerous than losing advantage. And once someone begins feeling that tension, success can start feeling less like freedom and more like careful positioning. Not how much you can do, how much you can show without changing how people respond to you. What feels social is often survival logic underneath. Humans are wired to notice position inside groups, not through logic, through signals. Who seems secure? Who seems uncertain? Who seems safe to rely on? When someone becomes more financially stable, the nervous system of the group often reacts before anyone understands why. Stability can signal safety, but it can also signal difference. And difference can quietly activate distance, because humans evolved to stay inside shared conditions. When one person moves outside those conditions, even upward, the brain begins recalculating roles, not because anyone decides to, because predictability inside a group feels safer than imbalance. This is why getting ahead can sometimes feel socially complicated, even when nothing bad happens. The change is not always emotional, it's positional. And once someone's position changes, people often begin adjusting behavior automatically. Who asks for help? who offers solutions, who absorbs stress, who becomes the stable reference point. These shifts rarely feel intentional, but they often follow the same pattern. The most stable person slowly becomes the one expected to carry more weight, not because they volunteered, because stability quietly attracts responsibility. And once someone becomes the reliable one, people begin leaning without noticing they're leaning. Small requests first, small expectations, then larger assumptions. And this is where many people begin feeling another quiet change. Success does not only create distance, it can also create gravity. This is where many people begin feeling a conflict they can't easily explain, because getting ahead does not usually change how they feel about the people around them, but it can change how they begin managing themselves inside the group. You may notice yourself choosing words more carefully, deciding what to mention, deciding what to leave out, not because you're hiding success, because you're protecting connection. You may find yourself minimizing progress, changing how you describe what you do, avoiding details that might create distance, not because anyone asked you to, because you're trying to stay emotionally recognizable. This is where success can start creating a quiet loyalty conflict between who you are becoming and where you came from, between progress and familiarity. Because part of you wants to move forward, but another part wants to remain relatable to the people who knew you before. And this creates a pressure many people never talk about. Not whether they deserve success, but whether success will slowly change where they feel allowed to belong. This is why many people begin managing perception instead of just living change, adjusting how much they share, adjusting how much they show, trying to stay close enough to belong while still moving forward. And that balance can become exhausting because it's not just about growth anymore, it becomes about how much growth feels socially safe to reveal. What changes is not just how people feel, it's how the group quietly reorganizes itself. Financial stability often becomes a signal people use to understand who can handle pressure, who can solve problems, who can absorb disruption. Not because anyone announces it, because groups naturally move responsibility toward whoever looks most stable. And this is where success can begin changing position in ways people don't expect. You may notice people asking your opinion more, expecting you to decide, expecting you to stay calm when others feel pressure. Not because you became the leader, because stability often gets interpreted as capacity, and capacity attracts expectation. This is why the most financially stable person in a group often becomes the quiet fallback plan, the one people assume will figure things out, the one people assume will not fall apart. And this can slowly change how people relate to you, less like someone sharing the same uncertainty, more like someone expected to absorb it. This is where success can begin feeling heavier than it looks from the outside, because what people call stability often becomes responsibility in practice, and responsibility rarely stays neutral inside social groups. Once this shift happens, behavior often begins adjusting around it, not suddenly, quietly. You may start thinking ahead before speaking, deciding what fits the group, deciding what might create distance. You may begin avoiding certain topics, avoiding certain upgrades, avoiding certain changes that might make the gap more visible. Not because you regret progress, because you're trying to manage belonging. This is where many people begin doing something they never expected, making themselves smaller in social spaces where they once felt equal, downplaying wins, deflecting compliments, matching complaints they no longer feel. Because once someone senses their position changed, they often begin protecting the group balance instead of expressing their reality. And over time, this can narrow how people show up. Less honesty about progress, less openness about direction, more filtering, more editing. Not to deceive, to remain emotionally compatible. And over time, this can create another quiet cost of getting ahead. Not losing people, losing how freely you feel you can be yourself around them. Most people expect getting ahead to change their lifestyle. Fewer expect it to change their position with the people they started with. Because once someone becomes the stable one, they rarely return to being just another member of the group, even if they want to. And this is where many people begin noticing something they were never prepared for. Success can change what you can afford, but it can also change where you fit. And sometimes the hardest part isn't the distance itself, it's realizing it appeared without anyone deciding it should.